Hi, friends, and welcome to 15241 Today Talk. And our special guest today is a good friend, Jerry Malarkey, who at one time was a teacher in the high school and now guidance counselor, and for many years the head baseball coach of the Upper St. Clair Panthers. And I've got to tell you this, folks, I have two children, a son David and a daughter Megan. And my son David always said that Jerry Malarkey, sorry about this, Jim, that Jerry Malarkey was his all-time favorite teacher. Thanks for joining us on the show, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. And I will say my daughter always says Jim Render was one of her favorite teachers. So.
That's unbelievable.
That's what I told her.
You know, Jerry, I've known you a long time, but are you from Pittsburgh, a graduate?
I grew up in Scott Township.
So you're a graduate of
South Catholic.
South Catholic.
Right.
And then where to get your bachelor's and master's?
Went to Grove City College for my undergrad, and then went to Slippery Rock for my master's.
So you knew at an early age that you wanted to be an educator?
Well, you know, growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. Then I started in college, and I thought, well, you know, being a lawyer sounds pretty good. And the more I got into it, the more I thought I really would like to coach someday. And education seemed to be the path to take for that. So about my sophomore year of high school or college, I decided to major in education.
What kind of doctor did you think you wanted to be?
I didn't know enough about it to know, Lanny. I think that was part of the problem. One, it didn't have to take chemistry and biology.
Good luck with that.
I haven't met that one.
Yeah, good luck with that. But you knew you wanted to coach.
Yes, I always knew that. And what inspired me to do that was my football coach when I was in 8th grade, a guy by the name of Bill Miller at Our Lady of Grace, who was one of his assistant coaches was my best friend's dad. So we would go to Chartiers Valley football games every Friday night, the four of us, Paul Biaggetti and his dad, and Bill Miller and I. And just hearing these guys tell stories and talk about coaching really got me wanting to get into coaching.
Did you play sports in high school?
I did play football and baseball. Depends on who you ask, I guess. I was not a great baseball player or football player. I was good. I enjoyed it. I was not great.
But baseball, we're going to talk about that more a little bit later on, or you want to jump into that?
A lot of people probably don't know this, including you, but when I first came here, Jerry was on our football staff. And, you know, he's had so much success in baseball that it's probably a little known fact by this time that he was a good football coach for us.
Let me stay with the education aspect of it for a moment. Was it tough for you to decide to give up teaching and become a guidance counselor?
I had taught, I think, probably for about 20 years, and I got to the point where I felt myself getting stale, and I thought I really like coaching. I really like the day-to-day interaction with the kids, and I want to find a way to be able to stay in this for a long period of time. And the opportunity came up to make the move from teaching to counseling, and to be honest, at the halfway point in my career, it was almost like starting a whole new career over again. And it was I enjoyed teaching. I love teaching, but I think I got a breath of fresh air and a shot of adrenaline to move into counseling.
What is it that you like best about teaching?
About teaching, I like the day-to-day interaction with the same kids, where you get to know the same group of kids over the course of a 9-month school year. I liked challenging them to engage in discussions, to engage in conversations about things, to try to throw them a curve every once in a while, and just make them think things through instead of memorizing stuff all the time.
You mentioned the kids. I really agree with what you just said. You know, people are constantly asking me about retirement and what do I like or what do I miss. Well, I miss the interplay with the kids. And in my case, well, I think you can relate to this. Young people keep you young.
I agreed.
You know, I go down to Florida and a lot of those people down there want to talk about their next doctor's appointment and
their last doctor's appointment
and what medications they're taking. You know? And I've often said those kids, they didn't care what I was taking. and it, you know, so every now and then I need a fix to go see some of the kids, you know. So How time is slipping by. How many years now have you been the head baseball coach?
This is my 36th season.
That's remarkable. You've had a lot of good baseball players.
I've had a lot of great people that have come through our program. Some that have been great baseball players, some not so great baseball players, but good people.
Good people, yeah.
And you and I have talked about this before. It's, you can get hung up on talking about what your players did in your sport when you leave here, but the important thing is what kind of husbands, what kind of fathers, what kind of employees, community members that they become once they leave. And I think that when I look at the players that have come through our program, and not that it was because of our program, but it makes me proud to look at what some of these people have accomplished.
I feel the same way, which is why I write those articles for the magazine. I like to write about guys, they were good football players, but they've gone on to be better fathers or citizens or professionals, which again, and you probably get this question, how many pros do I have?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the answer is my pros are doctors, lawyers, and businessmen. Now you've had a few more make the major leagues. In fact, I'll just tell you this. My current subject for an article for the magazine is going to be Kevin Ory, and boy, he's had a remarkable life, on as an athlete, and then as a father, remarkable life.
Mm-hmm.
He told me something the other day that I didn't know. I'll share this with you. Maybe you knew it, but he hit a home run when he was playing for the Cubs. He hit a home run in Wrigley on Father's Day as a rookie, and his father and brothers were sitting on the third base side. I mean, can you imagine hitting a home run and then as you approach third base,
Your dad's there.
see your dad sitting there?
Yeah. So my favorite memory of Kevin Ory is we were playing Baldwin. We were still playing our games at Baker at that time. And there was and I'm sure you remember this name, Brian Geltsizer, who was a linebacker for Baldwin, was also a baseball player for Baldwin. And they were both very good athletes, very good baseball players. And I think one of them had 4 home runs that day and one of them had 3. They just kept exchanging home runs in the game. It was like, okay, here comes Kevin, home run, here comes Brian, home run. And that's one of my, that along with a play that Kevin made. To this day, I don't know how he made it. He was playing shortstop. There was a line drive that was over top of the third baseman's head. Kevin laid out, dove, and caught the ball. And to this day, I've never seen a more athletic baseball play.
Yeah, he was.
And a special young man, too. Really special young man.
Do you know my all-time favorite trivia question? Who's the only man to intercept a pass off of Kerry Collins and hit a home run off of Roger Clemens? Kevin Ory.
Yeah, high school. And
Now, the Collins interception was in our state championship game. That's kind of a neat little.
It is.
yeah, it is. It's yeah.
So the transition, we'll get back to baseball in a moment, but the transition now to guidance counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, you're on the front lines there with helping students, and many of them I know from teaching in college. A lot of students go to college and they really don't know what they want to do. How challenging is that for you to help that student find his or her way into college and a career?
So one of the things that I think my role as a counselor is not so much to, and I always tell my kids, we meet with our juniors formally at some point in time during their junior year, and one of the things that I always try to, you don't have to know what you want to be when you grow up the day you walk out of Upper St. Clair High School. But in the course of your 4 years of high school, you should start figuring out what you like to do, what you don't like to do, what are you good at, what do you know that you're not good at, and how might that at some point in time translate to a college major or to a career. And I would rather have a kid, like when I sit down at that junior meeting, if a kid comes in and the first question I ask is, so where are you in this thought process? And I would rather have the kid go, you know what, I'm totally clueless and this is the first time I've thought about it, than come in and say, I've got 5 colleges in mind and I want to be an engineer, and I want to say to them, you're 17 years old, how do you know that? So to me, it's more about a self-discovery than it is about figuring out what it is you want to be when you grow up.
Can you give an example of how your job as a guidance counselor has changed since you started in guidance and today?
Okay, very easily. I think the biggest change that I've seen, it's probably come more in the last 5 years, has been the increase in the number of mental health issues and mental health concerns that we deal with. Kids that are dealing with anxiety, kids that are dealing with depression, that it manifests itself in school, and a lot of times it was like, get up, get over it, move on, that kind of thing, and now we have to deal with it. And you have more and more kids that are on medication, that are in therapy and those types of things, and it's not just being pushed aside, it's being dealt with now, and that to me has been the biggest change.
Why are more kids on medication and in therapy?
I wish I could answer that. I don't know the answer to it.
I thought that's what you were going to answer, say,
People
but-
want to blame social media. I mean, that can feed into it. I don't think other people say, it's parenting styles are different. I don't know that parenting styles are that different.
Really?
They might be a little bit, I don't know. But I just think it's more, I think more people are willing to own mental health issues, and more parents are willing to accept it and seek help instead of being embarrassed by it, instead of trying to hide it. That's what I think a big change in terms of it coming to the surface more in schools.
Well, you're probably right. It just, as an older guy, some of the problems I hear about today, and then I scratch my head and I said, I don't know. I didn't know any of my classmates that had those issues, And we were all involved in World War II and Korea,
And we had Vietnam, and I'm the
Yeah.
same thing. I don't recall those types of issues when I was in high school.
But it is, in my opinion, great that there's concern and much care on your part as a guidance counselor. This is a question that I've asked a lot of our guests, and I think it's most appropriate, and that is, what is it about Upper St. Clair's school district and this community that you love so much?
There's a lot of things, and both of our kids, Laura and both of our kids came through Upper St. Clair school system and had great experiences. I think it's the involvement of parents. I know some people think that's a negative. I think our parents are involved most often in a good way in terms of monitoring their kids' grades, monitoring their kids' progress. I think the resources and the opportunities that we provide our students in this school district are very similar to surrounding school districts, but we offer them, we provide them. I think the attempt on the part of the, I can speak for the high school, the attempt on the part of the high school to let kids be who they are, to develop their skills, to find their way, not, hopefully not paint each kid into a box, and allow them to become individuals. Those are the kind of things that I think are strengths of the school district. And my two kids both had totally different tracks here. My son Jeffrey played baseball, he played soccer. Jenny was involved in the musicals, played soccer, so they kind of were different kinds of kids, and they both had positive experiences here. And I think Upper St. Clair School District, Upper St. Clair High School provides the opportunity for kids to have opportunities that sort of fit who they are and who they want to be, and help them find out who they are.
Did you have a job as a teacher at a district other than Upper St. Clair?
I taught at Keystone Oaks for a year, just in a long-term substitute, so I don't really have a feel much for other districts.
No, I just was curious.
Yes, I did 1 year at Keystone Oaks.
And this is what, at Upper St. Clair?
43.
43. That's amazing. Don't you think?
Oh, I think it's tremendous.
But I mean, look at how many years that you coach, and you, when you get up every day and you go to do something that you like to do, it's not like I never feel like I'm going to work. Like, I love what I do. And you were talking about people asking you about retirement, and I'm asked all the time about, why are you still here? Why don't you retire? And the answer is because I love what I'm doing. Why would I leave it?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
You want to say that? I want to say back to people, why did you retire?
You might be able to say that to me.
No, I mean, you've had a little bit of longevity, Coach.
I know. I meet I meet people a lot of times, men that wish they hadn't retired, or they're concerned as to what they're going to do next. Especially the ones that are in good health, and a lot of them are.
Yeah.
You know, I'm okay in the mornings as long as I have something to do.
I need structure.
Yeah.
Back to your point about when a student comes in and doesn't know where he or she is going, and you ask the questions about what is it you like to do, is there testing that can enhance that student's ability to deal with that, or is that not a good barometer?
We have a computer website. It's called Naviance. That our kids, when they're in as sophomores, they go on, they do an interest inventory, they do a personality inventory, and the results of those point them in the direction of different career areas. And then they can just, like, let's say it points them in the area of math and science, and you click on that and it takes you into related careers, related college majors. Then each one of those you click on and it takes you even further into it. So that's the kind of the self-exploration types of things that the kids do to try to at least start to get a handle on it.
When you're dealing with students, how much do you have to then go back and interface with their teachers to find out maybe a student's not having a good time in a particular class, not getting a good grade? Do you need to go to the teacher then to find out what's going on there?
I do, and I think having been in the classroom for almost 20 years and being able to call on that experience helps me know how to approach the teachers with those kind of issues. When a kid's struggling, I think the teachers and respect to a degree that I was in the classroom for that period of time, so they know that I've been where they are and can understand their perspective. So I think it makes it a little bit easier to have that conversation, because it's, you find yourself kind of caught in the middle sometimes. The kid has a complaint about the teacher states their case, and my job is to be the student advocate. And what I sometimes tell the kids is, sometimes being your advocate is disagreeing with you, and sometimes it's holding you accountable, and sometimes it's getting in your face if you're doing something that's not right. If you're not doing your homework and you don't have a good grade and you're blaming the teacher, I'm not quite sure I buy your story, your version of it. So,
All right, back to baseball.
Yes, sir.
Sean Casey.
Yes.
Was he as gregarious a guy in high school as we've all gotten to know Sean, and
at the
bubbly
age
individual?
of 16 years old, Sean is the same person he is today at the age of whatever he is. He was a fantastic young man. He was an awesome young man to have in our baseball program. Sean and I developed a pretty good relationship when he was in high school, and he's the same person now. What you see is what you get. There's not an ounce of fakeness. There's not an ounce of acting or an ounce of anything other than sincerity, and what you see is what you get.
And now you're coaching
Both
two of
of
his
his
kids?
sons, yes, who are also wonderful young men.
Do you tell his sons stories about him when he was a...
Every once in a while when I think it's appropriate, yeah.
Sean, he's said on the show that there weren't a lot of colleges that were looking for him to play baseball for. Found Richmond. And then, in high school, did you think he'd become a major league player?
Sean was one of those kids who worked so hard every single day to get better, and the progress that he made from his freshman year to his sophomore year to his junior year to his senior year, it's like, you can step back now and go, okay, you can see that if that progression continued through college and so on, he had a chance to go as far as he wanted. But I don't think, and I don't know how Jim feels, but when you see a kid playing in high school, you just never know what potential or what possibility there might be for them, because a lot of that is their skill and their work ethic and so on, but a lot of it is just being in the right place at the right time. And in Sean's case, Richmond was going to come up and see him. We were supposed to play, I think, Montour, and the game was rained out. Called the coaches at Richmond and said, "Oh, it's too bad. We were hoping to see him play." And I said, well, when can you come and we can maybe play around and reschedule it? So we were able to arrive at a date where they were able to come on the day that we made up that game. And I think Sean was like 3 for 4 with 4 or 5 RBIs, and I think they made him an offer before they left. So again, I mean, if they couldn't have come to see that game, who knows? Well, I think a lot of schools missed the boat on Sean.
Did they?
Yeah.
What is it about baseball that you love, being the head coach and dealing with baseball every year?
You know, it's funny that you asked that, because my son came for dinner a week or so ago, and I knew that I had given him the glove that my dad gave me when I was 8 years old.
Is that right?
And I said, could you just bring it over? So he brought it over, and I'm going to work it in some point in time to a preseason talk to the team. But when I was 8 years old, my dad bought me a glove. He said, here, I signed you up for baseball. I'm thinking, okay, what the heck, you know? And in Scott Township, you could start playing kid pitch baseball when you were 8 years old. And I loved the game. We had a baseball field behind our house, and all summer long, that's all we did. And I can remember the field was maybe 200 yards from our house. It sat up on a hill behind a church, and we would be there all day. And my mom had this big bell, and she'd come out when it was dinner time, and she'd ring the bell, and we'd come back, and we'd play, and we'd make arrangements to go back after dinner to play again. And if there was nobody around to play, you took a baseball and you threw it off the wall of the house. I remember having a square on the wall, and I would practice pitching against that. And I developed a passion for the game, and you know, it was part of that passion was following the Pirates. You know, they won the World Series when I was 7 years old. The next year's the year my dad signed me up to play baseball. So I grew up listening to Bob Prince and loving the game of baseball, very much the way my son grew up listening to Lanny and learned to love baseball as a result of that.
Influential man.
I can remember sitting in my son's bed at night with him when he was a little kid. He learned to read by looking at his baseball cards and listening to Lanny broadcast Pirate
Well, thanks
baseball.
for saying that. I appreciate that. And the game, I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with Jim and talk to Jim about coaching, and with you and Jim Leland, and there's something about being in charge of a baseball club. I know this from having been around Jimmy Leland. I mean, you're on that dugout. You're trying to to be a good baseball coach or a head coach or a manager like Jim Leland. You got to be thinking even innings ahead of time. Correct?
You do, and you have to. You sort of have to be anticipating where your players are. You know, is your pitcher starting to, you know, are his pitches getting a little bit high? Is he getting tired? Do you have a hitter coming up in the other lineup that, you know, it's a close game and it's a lefty coming up? Do you have a left-handed pitcher in the bullpen that maybe you can come in and throw to take the wind out of their sail a little bit? So you have to be thinking ahead to those kind of things. You have to be paying attention to your own pitcher's pitch count. You know, we have really strict rules now as to what the pitch counts were, and we've always been pretty conservative with our pitchers in terms of pitch count. But now there are rules in place for that. So those are the kinds of things that you have to be thinking about. So yes, you do. You need to be thinking a step ahead all the time.
Do the umpires, are they a part of the pitch count process?
No, the pitch count is kept by each team has a pitch count person. We have a high school kid who keeps our book, who keeps our pitch count, and then every inning the two pitch count people need to meet at home plate and make sure their numbers are the same.
Oh.
And if they're different, the home team is the number that you go by.
Are they different very often?
I don't think ours were different once last year. I mean, surprisingly, given the fact you got two high school kids counting pitches.
Well, they ought to be able to count. Excellence in education.
Yeah, but
here
you've
at
got
Upper
18
St.
kids around them distracting them.
Yeah, it really is the distraction factor, because
Yeah,
I've tried to, when I've announced games because of the pitch count, I have tried to keep track of pitch count so I could, as an announcer, know where the starters were. And at times you get caught up with something else. Now, I've been around. I've done a lot of high school baseball games. I think 10 years now that I've worked for Trib Live doing baseball, and I don't think there's any question that the best baseball field in Western Pennsylvania is your field. And you mentioned earlier that you used to play at Baker. What has the transition to this new field at Boyce Mayview meant for the program?
I think it's meant a lot to the program. I mean, what kid growing up in Upper St. Clair would not want to play at Boyce Mayview? It's I think the nicest facility, high school facility in Western Pennsylvania. And other teams like to come there. Like, it's really not hard for us to get home non-section games because people want to come and play at our field, and it's just a nice environment. I think, you know, I always, every season at some point in time, I'll tell our kids, you walk through this gate, you're playing on the nicest facility in Western Pennsylvania. You have an opportunity that other kids don't have. And, we always talk at the beginning of the season, there are 700 boys in Upper St. Clair High School. There are 20 of you on the varsity baseball team. So you've earned an opportunity not only to be a part of something, but also to play on a great facility.
Do you like to play under the lights out there?
I do. I think it creates a nice atmosphere. I think it enables, it's easier for the parents to get there, obviously, but it also, I think, brings more of the students out. Our Mount Lebanon game last year that we won in the bottom of the seventh inning was just one of the most exciting baseball games that I've been a part of.
Hopefully, I agree with what you said. Hopefully there'll be more night games in the future.
I would hope so. All of our section games this year are at night.
Oh, good. Is there anything you miss about Bakerfield?
Bakerfield was old school, dirt infield. When I first became head coach, there was no outfield fence, and there were no dugouts. And so the left, all the way around, but especially left field, there was a hill that had trees on it, and there were broken bottles and tires and everything else. So if you hit a ball up on the hill, it was all you can get. So you'd have an outfielder that'd be, moving a tire out of the way, trying to get through trees and stuff, and meanwhile the runners circling the bases. So it was a nice environment to play in. Certainly not the type of facility that we have right now, but I can remember every one of our section games, the students would drive down that little pathway in center field. They have a grill. They'd sit out there and, to some extent, heckle the outfielders from the opposing teams. But it was just two totally different atmospheres. But Baker was not a horrible facility to play at.
Jerry, we got 3 minutes left. Let me just have you tell everybody about your two children, what they're doing now, and I know you're proud of your children.
So Jeffrey works for PPG. He's in finance. He is the director of their architectural coatings for the Americas, so he does a little bit of traveling. Jenny was a theater major and is involved in acting, doing some acting locally, teaching for the public theater and teaching for the CLO. Both are local, and we're happy about that. And I just wanted one more thing. You mentioned about football before, and one of my most positive experiences at Upper St. Clair High School was the opportunity to coach football and to be on Jim's staff. And the main reason for that was that Jim always let his coaches coach. He said, this is what you're going to do, this is what you need to do, go do it. And I've always appreciated it because I think it gave me confidence and helped me develop both as a coach and as a professional. And I've always been grateful for that.
Well, thank you. You shouldn't have said that. This is about you and about the baseball.
It's about a lot of things.
Final couple minutes. Every year you take a team south. That must be a fun experience, but can be challenging taking young people on a trip.
It's very challenging. And the last thing we say to our kids before we get on the bus is this trip is predicated on trust. Us being able to trust you, to be down there and be focused on what we're there for. Have fun. Go out to the beach when we have an opportunity to, but you're there for the purpose of getting better, so when we come back in open section, we're ready to go.
Well, thanks, Jerry Malarkey, for being with us. We really appreciate you spending time with us. We brought you from the high school to Boyce for our onstage segment. You're a great guy, and I'm most pleased that I've had an opportunity to get to know you. And Jim, your final thought on
when are you going to retire?
I don't know, Jim.
Don't do it. Jerry Malarkey, our guest on this edition of 15241 Today Talk. Glenn Ward is our producer-director. Linda Dunzinski is our coordinating producer. Thanks very much for joining us.